Hey planner friends, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day so far. I want to show you guys today how I break down a project idea into deliverables and an action plan in a 30-day setting. That way, if you have a project coming up or you want to build a new routine or a new habit, this might be one of the great ways that you can accomplish that. So let's get into it. Alright friends, so in my previous video, I showed you guys the two undated planners that I have in my planner collection that I like to use every now and then whenever I have a project or just a random busy season of my life that pops up that I really want to be able to branch out something very specific from my Nancy planner. So I've showed you guys my Nancy planner before, and we know that she's my all-inclusive planner, so she already holds a lot of information. So if I were to go to the current week or current month, you would see that there's already so much going on here that if I tried to add in specifics or deliverables for a project that I am on a 30-day constraint time frame, it would be a lot and I would probably miss it based off especially how I am, that I really need to kind of see everything very specific. And so that is where my undated rows comes into play here. So I've had this one for a while, and I showed you guys in the previous video how I set it up to be able to create a marketing sprint for myself, but also to collect some information for my clients as I work through some new marketing trends and things like that. And so I want to show you guys how I took basically the brain dump of this project and created this commitment plan, and then how I would tie this into my everyday planner once it's all set in stone. So first and foremost, of course, you would need an undated planner or a current planner, however you want to use that out. And then I just have a notebook that keeps all of my brain dump more organized. So I've shared previously that I have my actual brain dump notebook, which is this one here, and it's just more of a messier version just to get everything out of my brain into somewhat of a system. But then once I have that completed, then I'll really go into my actual notebook and then keep track of everything that specific project has to offer. So what I like to do, I have these little dividers that section out each of my areas that I focus on, but this is the one that I'm going to walk you guys through. So I'm going to be working on a website project for my family business, and we usually do like a spring refresh website update, and so that's what I'm going to walk you through for this specific example. So what I like to do for my projects is I will go ahead and write in the goals of that project. If you've seen any of my videos, you know that I'm really big on goals and deliverables that I can actually scratch off and just make sure I'm getting, finalized. So I like to have what my main goals of this project are, or the goals I like. And then what I will do is also create a full to-do or task list for that project. Now, it could be a task list. You could also call it an outline. Maybe like in my marketing example, it was going to be like a course related type of commitment project, and so there's an outline of what that course would entail that ties into what those tasks are for me. So whatever it is that you want to label it as, it's basically going to be the things you have to get done for these goals to be completed. Okay, so essentially the same concept of how I use my large rows planner for all of my goals of my life. And so once you have your goals and you have your tasks, then I also like to make a note of these specific things for my projects. I will do my deliverables. So what are going to be the things that are basically going to be what people are either going to check in on, or if it's like a project for work, like what are you turning into your boss kind of thing for that project to be finalized. and then the deadlines that you're creating for yourself. So these are actually very important, because what I do, especially when I have such a very detailed project, is I will make sure that each of these deliverables have a full deadline, right? So that way I make sure that whether it's a simple deliverable or a very detailed deliverable, somewhere in my full plan, there is going to be a deadline and each of these things are going to be completed, okay? So basically it's what my goals are, right? If any of these goals have a specific deliverable, then I kind of wrote that in there. For this specific purpose, I guess it's like kind of self-explanatory, because the goals are very specific to what the website is going to offer, or what changes those website or changes the website pages are going to be. And so my deliverables for these goals are going to be basically the same thing as what the goals are, but just in a more clear form, if that makes any sense. So let me zoom in and I'll give you this example. So the first goal of this specific project is to create an easier user experience on the home page. And so what I did for this specific goal is now I have a very specific to-do list for this goal. And so that is to create an easier or more simplified front page layout. And then the main or most visited pages need to be featured. The chat box needs to be updated, and then the pop-up messages settings. So this is a note because these are things that kind of come up and I've made a note of. And so this is part of that specific goal. So then the deliverable for that is going to be a new home page layout. So I hope that makes sense. And so I went in and did that exact same thing for all of my goals. So the second goal here is make a checkout online smooth for all payment types. So we're adding new payment methods as we go. And so it just needs to be a little bit more of a smooth process, because we do get a lot of customer feedback on that. So I want to make sure that I'm going to focus that, since we are updating the website. And so second bullet point here is the to-do list for that is to add in the payment type options at checkout. So it might be just a one-liner, or like my first one, there's a couple of things within that goal, whatever that is for you or whatever that looks like for you. But essentially that is how I'm listing it out. So these tasks have to do with the goals, and then this payment type option at checkout task and goal now becomes a deliverable, and that is going to be the new checkout page, right? So that's essentially how I break down what the goals of this project are, then the tasks I have to complete for those specific goals, and then what deliverables I am going to be delivering or completing at the end of this project. And then where the deadlines come in, and this might look very different for everybody depending on what your project is going to be, but this is basically so that you could keep yourself accountable for when you're going to accomplish either the specific tasks under each of these goals that need to be done, or if you want to set yourself a deadline just for the deliverable, that's up to you. I personally like to give myself a deadline for, it's like a mix. I like to give myself a deadline for each of the deliverables in the project, because this is like more specific and more concrete of what needs to be completed for the project. But I will also have my specific schedule for this. And so that's what I'm going to now put into a planner system. Since I work very well with paper planners, I've been doing paper planning for a long time. I personally love to be able to see what my actual deliverables are on a daily basis. If you watched any of my videos, you know that I love to be able to go in and check things off, so that I am not only making sure I'm getting everything done, but getting that satisfaction of like, yeah, that's done, and my list is getting a little bit shorter. So that's just kind of my preference, okay? So, but these are the basics to getting that full project layout completed. Write down what your goals are, make your full to-do list or what that outline looks for you, have your deliverables set in place, and then create those big deadlines for yourself. So these deadlines I will walk you through as I'm moving into them, but essentially these are going to be deadlines for the big deliverables, and then I will go ahead and start putting these in as well. So let's work through that. So this is the planner that I'm going to be using, and it's the same thing as my large rose planner. It's just the mini or smaller size. And so you have your MT planner, full calendar, and then your note column over here. For this one in specific, I don't know what I would be using my note space for just yet, to be honest, but I'm gonna focus more on what I really want to focus on for my actual calendar. So I'm gonna find another blank. So here is this one, and I'm going to be using my, what month are we starting in? And actually, let me get an erasable pen because, you know, I am human, guys, and so that could happen where you kind of like mix things up. And so this is where I feel like erasable pens or pencils or whatever you want to use will be beneficial to you. So for this one specifically, or for this planner or project, it's going to be due. Oh, I'm sorry. That is another thing I forgot to mention. So not only are you creating your deadlines, but you have your big actual final deadline. And so for this specific project, the full changes, deliverables, everything should be completed by April 1st. So I'm essentially giving myself the full month of March to be able to complete all of these goals, tasks, and deliverables. And so that's also another reason why I like to branch it out, because that's a lot. So if I try to fit all of this into my Nancy planner, I think I would probably go a little bit crazy. As we've seen, my layout is already pretty busy. Sorry, I'm trying to work with a new camera layout here. But my February is already pretty crazy. So if I try to add in anything back here or create another insert, I don't know, I think it would just be too much, especially because I'm still new to these two inserts, and I'm going on month 3 now, I think, because I started in December, and I'm still not 100% sure. So I don't want to add in more to this planner. And so again, this is just another reason why having this Undated or another notebook for projects specifically would be very beneficial for you. So anyway, with that said, I am going to start on the last week of February because that is what we're in now. And so that flexibility gives you the option to start your planner whenever you want. So I'm going to do, it's technically like a February, March for this planner. And then we are in already 2026. And so I will have the dates out here just so that I can stay focused. But as you can see, the last week of February, you're technically starting on the first week of March. And so if I go to my March, which is where we're really going to focus on, I still have that week here. So I'll have this propped up so that I can reference it for the dates that I'm going to be needing, and then just structuring out my layout. So this is where it is a little bit tedious. If you like stickers, you can use stickers to, you know, write your numbers in or sticker the numbers, whatever you want to do. But what I'm going to do here is I did this one on my previous one, and I actually liked this layout where what I'm using the first column for is actually going to be the main goals or main deliverables for that specific week, so I can just keep track of that. And then I'm actually going to be starting my week or the first day of the week on the second column. So instead of this being the Monday, this is going to be the Monday. And so I'm just going to keep it real simple and just do this. I'm not very anal on how I do this for my projects. It's really just to get a big picture idea of what my calendar is going to look like in the project world. So when I'm setting my day up and I'm going to say, okay, today I'm working on that project and I know what I'm going to work on that day. So I'm not crazy about like if I write it all out or anything like that. So I'm just going to start on that first week. So the Monday is going to be the 23rd. So 23rd and on. Now I have my dates set up here for what this is going to look like. And so essentially this is going to be like the last week of February. And then I'm just going to make a note for myself that March kind of starts here. and then April will start at the bottom. Now, technically halfway, I realized I could have just done like the first up here, but I'll kind of explain why I didn't do that. I like to be able to see everything when I'm actually going to be starting. And so I am starting this week because I already have deadlines coming up the first week of March. And so I don't also like to push myself too much. I do like to be realistic with my schedule and make sure that when I'm creating these deadlines, I'm being realistic. And so that is another thing, right? So yes, the goal is to complete this project in 30 days. I've done this project before in a 30-day time frame for my marketing clients. So I'm kind of familiar with it. But if you're creating a new routine or you are planning for a project, be realistic with the deadlines, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure, because then that's just going to give you another reason to just not use your planner, not follow through with yourself, and not commit to yourself. So just, be realistic, guys. Don't try to overdo it. Maybe it's a 2-month project and you could still follow the system. You just obviously take your deadlines further to the second month. So just be realistic. There isn't any perfect in this process whatsoever, but also there's no perfect in planning. And the goal here is just to make sure that you're feeling like you can go ahead and get it done and set yourself up for that win. Okay, so just a little note there. But anyway, so I'm going to first go in with my deadlines. So the first thing after I have my calendar set up, I really want to go in and mark my deadlines, because that is what everything else revolves around. And so I'm going to go through my deadline list first and make sure that that is where I'm going to be making those notes. So for example, my launch date is going to be, again, I apologize for my camera. I'm trying to get used to this even smaller little corner I'm committing to for the moment. So my big project deadline is going to be this April 1st, because that is the actual launch date of when all of this should be done. So I'm going to make sure and put that it's actually, I didn't even do this right. So April 1st is technically going to be, and let me just make sure, it's going to be on a Wednesday. So yes, I am correct here. So this is going to be the 1st. Okay, so that's where I'm going to put my launch. So I'm just going to make this bigger because it is a half day. So April 1st is going to be my launch day. So I'm going to work now with the rest of the designs. And so basically for my homepage, so for my homepage layout, what I did is I starred this. So this might be marketing talk, but I'll try to make sense of it. So basically, one of my hard deadlines is going to be this March 12th, because this is when I'm going to be doing the A/B testing. So what this means is I'm going to have a few different pages running at the same time that are going to be active, so that I can get real data of how they're performing, and then ultimately make the decision of which one we're going to officially launch, right? So since this is kind of an important deadline, let me first write that in. So I am going to put the A/B test launch. That's going to be on the 12th. So basically everything else on the draft side of things are going to be before that date. And so that just means I'm going to have these different layout options that need to be submitted and then reviewed to make sure that they're good to go to launch with the A/B testing. So this is essentially like a soft launch. So if you're planning for maybe like a grand opening or something like that for a restaurant, right? You would always want to have a soft opening before you have a grand opening. And so that's essentially what this is for the new homepage layout. So everything else, because it does funnel down through the homepage layout design and everything in the website, most of these things that I need to either redesign or design need to be done before that, so that those changes are going to launch with that test or that testing phase. So with that said, I'm going to go down the list. So the homepage layout, the draft, I'm going to submit by the 9th. So I'm going to put, well, let's do home layout because I do have a few different layouts. So home layout draft is going to be due on the 9th here. And then the final launch after we do the A/B testing, I have it written on this 22nd. So I'm going to go ahead and put that here, which is a Sunday. Is it a Sunday? Let me check. I want to say that it is because usually, yes. So I have it on a Sunday because when I make an active change, and again, you don't need all of these reasonings, but this is just as I'm working my calendar, but I will go ahead and do like any major changes on a weekend. And so the A/B testing is just adding to the website essentially. And the final launch, I really do have to shut down the website, make some coding changes, and then relaunch. And so that's why I just prefer to do it over the weekend. And looking at my calendar for March, I'll be out of town on that Saturday. So the 22nd will be the best time. So I'm going to do here the final edit launch. That's going to be on the 22nd, and then with our full active launch on the 1st. Okay, so that's there. Now, these are kind of, if you see, I have like shorter time frames because these are kind of like one-off things that should be quick changes. So this one, March 4th, that one is going to be approaching really soon. So I'm going to do checkout page. Edits are going to be due by this day, and then my blog page by the 6th. So blog and FAQ updates are going to be due here. I didn't put due here. Okay, that way I know it's a deadline, right? So I have that and I have that. And then as I was creating the deadlines, you'll see that I actually scratched off. Like, so I have these deliverables, but these are the deadlines I created for those deliverables. So I just made sure that I had something that was cross-referencing myself with it. And that's what that is on there. Okay, so then I have those two. So now this is another page layout that I'm going to actually create. So this was going to be new, but again here. So for this one, because I do need some input on that one, I'm going to have a draft ready by the 5th. So I'm going to do the quote. Whoop, I misspelled that. Okay, so I'm going to do quote. I'm just calling it a page because I know exactly what that is. So the quote page draft is due on the 5th. And then I'm going to need the revisions by the 9th in order to be able to meet that March 12th launch date. So I'm going to put here, so layout draft. So I wrote this too big because I have another one on this Monday. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna erase it and then write smaller. And I'm gonna put a little box so that I know there's more than one items here. So this one I just erased was the home page, layout draft. And then I'm gonna add in here the revision. Well, let me put which revision it is because then I have a few of them. So I'm gonna put quote page revisions are due by that date. So when I send it, I'll make sure that they know that I need those dates, and it's just reminding me that I need to ask for them to give me their revisions. And then the final fixes and the launch would be on the 12th. So this was going to be for the home page as well as the quote page, right? So I'm just gonna make a note of it, but again, everything should be finalized and fixed, ready to go for this date anyway. So I am gonna highlight this because this is technically a hard/soft deadline. Okay, and then going down my list, so then my full spring catalog needs to be active by March 20th, and this is just like our catalog that I've been working on, and so that is not, okay, so launch catalog. I'll just put my spring note here. And this shouldn't take long either. They're just updated design. So it's just kind of data updating, but it'll be a perfect time for the spring launch. So that is already there. And then the design of the new calculator page, same thing. So there's kind of steps involved in it. So The launch and all of the fixes of that design will also be on the 12th, which is the AB launch. So the draft will be due on the 9th. So another busy Monday here, because I'm going to be all of my two drafts actually, because this is just for them to give me back the feedback. So here I'm gonna do calculator page, draft. And so you can see that I like to have the bigger square because I can write in more things. Obviously I'm trying to go a little bit fast here, but if I took my time a little bit more, I can probably write even smaller to make sure it fits and it's like a little bit neater. But for now, this is working. Like I said, for my projects, I just like to branch everything out and get a big picture view. Okay, so I'm gonna do the calculator page draft is going to be by the 9th, and then my revision by the 11th. So just making sure here, I'm gonna write a little box and then I'll put my calc page revisions. So since I'm giving them time to review the home page, then I'm also going to ask them to review the calculator page, and then so that the revisions will be due on the 11th, and then they'll be ready to launch on the 12th. This is going to drive me annoying. I don't know if that's a word for a way to say it, but essentially I'm going to bring this bigger. AB launch. I'm just going to do AB launch and then do home, quote, and calculator, because we have all those revisions. And going back to my little square. Okay, that makes me a little happier. Okay, so those are technically all of my hard deadlines for these deliverables. Now, if you see on my notes pages here, I made additional notes of like what other checkup and data I need to be gathering while I'm either waiting for revisions or making my revisions, and then what I need to check in on and follow up on to make sure that I'm going to reach this official launch date. And so again, for me, since I've done this type of project in a similar way before, I kind of remember like what I need to follow up with. And so I'm just going to make a note of these things just to remind me that I need to check in and get some different data to kind of keep track of things. And that way I'm leaving some space between when we have our final launch over here for the weekend launch, and that way I have a couple of days to gather this information, and I still have some flexible time to make changes or edits within the team. That way we're still meeting that launch date. So this is another example of like when and how to be realistic with yourself. I know that even after a launch, there's going to be some edits, but to really gather some data and make it like completely done, I like to give myself a week and a half-ish or so, if it's possible, to be able to make those additional changes. And it's not going to be after the fact. So I'm not just saying like, okay, like all of these changes are going to be made and here's the launch date, thank you. I'm actually allowing time for feedback, changes, and data collection to really make those full-on decisions about the launch. And so whatever project that you're going to be planning for, again, be realistic with your time frame, and then give yourself that flexibility to be able to check in and not just feel like you have to complete something or launch something by that certain time frame. So I'm going to make a note of these. So on the 25th, I'm just going to do in like a little check-in note here, and then on the 28th as well. So check in on here. Okay, and then let's see, so the AB results. Okay, so then those are all my deadlines, and then here are some other notes that you can see that I made for myself. So we're doing the launch date for the AB testing on the 12th, so I'm going to get the test results, AB results, on the 19th, and that way if there's any updates or anything that need to happen, I technically have like a day or two to go ahead and do that. That way I'm ready for that final launch on that 22nd to make those revisions live for this time frame. So I could do maybe sooner if I really wanted to. But I think this time frame will work. I don't foresee there being a lot of changes, but if there is, well, then I have a very busy weekend that week ahead, even though technically here I am out of town, but we'll make it work. We'll make sure. So I'll be checking in on those tests. So actually, let me make a note here that I'm going to do a check-in on the A/B tests. That way, if I see like very, very strong differences, I may move in the full results sooner, because then I'll have more time to make those changes. So I'll just make a note to myself on that. And I think for now, that is it. So these are, again, the full hard deadlines that I've created for myself for the full deliverable. So again, you have your full goals and then your task lists, but your deliverables are what they're either gonna grade you on, or what you have to turn into your boss, or what that project is going to look like once it's completed. Those are your hard deliverables. So your deadlines that you really want to focus on have to do with those deliverables, because that is where you're setting yourself up to make sure that everything's going to get done. So it could be as simple as that. If you're just kind of like, okay, this is what I need to get done, these are my deadlines, and this works for you, you're done here. You have a project layout, you know what you want to deliver for those projects, and you know what deadlines you have, and now you have a calendar that's going to prove where and what you have going on. So at this point, if this is where you're done, what I would do then is go to your actual planner layout that you're using and make sure that these deadlines are in your schedule. Whoops. So for me, if let's just say, as an example, this was February, the way that I lay out my planner, I have my meetings or deadlines or anything that's part of my schedule on my left-hand side, and then I will highlight it in my actual calendar, because this tells me that I'm committed to that. So that is concrete in my calendar. And if I am not going to make any changes, then it goes highlighted in there, and that's that. So that's how I would treat my deadlines for big projects. I would treat it as an actual committed appointment and make sure that it's included in my schedule. So that's how I would definitely do that. So that's what I would do if I was, like I said, if this is enough for you for project planning and you're done here, kudos, we're done. You can fast forward to the end of the video. But if not, what I like to do, because I am very extra, I like to give myself specific goals for every week. And then I will, if you're familiar with my full planning process of how I use 4 planners together, you know that every task gets also an assigned time frame, because it helps me really stay focused on every single deliverable, not in the full completed sense, but in the working sense as well, because there's a lot of things that happen before that deliverable can actually be done. So once these things are set in stone, then I will go in and go now to my full to-do list. And then what I will start doing is connecting everything that works with each of the goals or my deliverables, and I will start placing them in my full project planner to make sure that everything on this list is going to be accounted for somewhere within my week. And of course, if it has it connected to a specific deliverable that already has a deadline, then it's only going to make more sense where this actually goes into place. So I'm going to zoom through that and come right back to you to show you what that looks like. So really quickly, I noticed that I forgot to scratch one out, and so I did the calculator page down here, but I didn't do my new customer account page, which is another deliverable. And so I guess I just zoomed through this, but that also was proving a point of why a task list is really good idea, because you're breaking down your goals to very specific tasks and then your deliverables. And so now that I picked my deadlines, went through my deadlines, and now I'm cross-referencing my task list. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't put anything about my customer account page. And so now I realized that I didn't include that in my deadlines. So that's just another good thing to do it. So with that said, the new customer account page, same concept, since I'm going to be creating, well, there's already one there, but I'm going to create a new layout and concept. So it's going to repeat the same deliverables that the quote access is going to follow. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to make a note here that this is also going to be for customer account. And that way I can scratch this off for sure. And then I need to now add these deadlines to reflect the same thing for my customer account. So on the 5th, which is on the Thursday, not only is my quote page going to be due, but I also need to do my customer account page draft. That is going to be set up, and then same thing with the revisions are going to be here. What I'll do is, because there's already a lot going on this Monday, I will go ahead and just put revision for all layouts. And that way, if I don't technically scratch it off on the 9th and remember that this is also for the customer, then on the 10th, I'll remind myself that I still need to make sure I have all of the revisions, because technically these days I'll be working on these edits that I'm given to make sure that the launch is going to happen either which way. So I'm gonna make that change too. And then the final launch on the 12th. So that one's gonna stay the same. So that was just a little thing I realized. And so now I'm gonna go back to my tasks, and that way I can really break them down. Okay, another little break here just to kind of, again, this is my project process and planning, which I'm just being transparent about. But if there's just kind of, you know, maybe some notes that can help, that's why I'm doing this. But what I wanted to point out here, so some of these like edits that I'm going to be doing to the customer account page, there are additional tasks in here. Now, I like to put in all of the tasks in my planner, but some of them tie in together, so I don't like, you don't have to put every single thing. If there's something that is going to remind you on what this is, then you can just put one of them. Or if like this whole section maybe needs to be in a different page, maybe in your actual current planner, then whenever you're going to work on this, you can make a full note in that planner of like, these are your top 3 focuses for that day. And then you know that all of this will be completed on that day. So just if you kind of, you know, weren't sure if you wanted to put all of your tasks in a planner and really kind of be like, whoa, that's too much. It just kind of depends on how you are going to work better with this process. So these are a couple of things that I know I need to make within the page, but I've already made a note that I will be working on that starting over this weekend, because I checked my calendar and my husband is working. So I know that my weekends are going to be, you know, work related since he's working. So I'm adding those tasks on there to kind of get a head start a few days before it's actually due. And then just a reminder to check in on those tasks individually, so that I'll be ready for when it's official, like deadline time or launch date. So that's just another way to approach it if you didn't want to put every single task on there. So all right, guys, so that's it. So this is technically what it looks like now. So if I just kind of open it up to give you a full view here. So this is how the project started. So we created the goals and then all of the tasks needed to complete those individual goals, and then getting an overview of what those deliverables are for those specific goals, right? So it's a goal in my mindset, but what does that deliverable actually look like? That's what is on here, along with the deadlines that I'm giving myself to make sure that I know that every single deliverable and task of this project are going to get finished. So that is how I really approach it. And so I'll show you the other ones I have as well. So like this one was for my marketing. And so you kind of see like I have a list of my notes of what I want this project to be about. And then I have this outline to myself, the dates that I want to kind of have on here. And then I separated one of the actual items into it branched out on its own because it's like a project within a project, if that makes any sense. And then here is like the full on timeline, as well as the deliverables by week that I kind of took note of. And then this is exactly what went into my planner, which was in this one here. So this project is broken down into here, and then all of these videos are labeled with this. So these are the deliverables of these actual hard deadlines. So that's how it was with this marketing sprint. And then this one is still in the process for planner hoot things. And then this is the website work for my family business. And so I'm gonna open that up here just to kind of give that review. So from all of this note-taking and task list breakdown, this is what my project planner essentially will look like now. So this is giving me an overview of all of my deliverables, all of my deadlines. And so when I have this planner and I reference it, I know that I have specific things to focus on. So now with me being extra, I would do the same thing about bringing in your planner, but this is when I would now bring in my actual work planner. So, or daily planner, should I say. So if, let's just say I have it moved into March, which is technically when this is going to be moved into, but I want to record that for you guys to move in everything from my previous month and my projects into my full month. So I'll hold that for the next video. But if this was the example, this is how I would go ahead and do it. Again, like I mentioned, the hard deadlines of what are due dates or anything that is like a draft, or if there's something you need to be reminded of, like for me, for those, the feedback dates to stay on that timeline, I am going to make sure that it's part of my actual schedule so that I can every day know exactly what is due, what my appointments are, or what deadlines I've set with myself. So it's going to be part of my schedule. And then here, this is my everyday, right? What I build on that day based on that day. So here, what I would do then is bring in those specific tasks into my daily planner. So, or my daily block. So if, for example, on the 24th, I'm telling myself I'm going to do the design catalog update data. I'm basically telling myself I need to export everything from the previous catalog so that I can start prepping for my spring catalog, which is due on the 20th. I'm starting very early on that. So that is going to be one of the main tasks that I put on my day, because that's going to be a priority for me to make sure that this gets done. Same thing for the following days. I have gather data on my site pages, so I'm going to be doing that on that Wednesday. And then on the 26th, settings changes for the chat box, I'm going to be adding it on there. Whatever it is that you're planning for, wherever you house your daily planning is where you would essentially write in these tasks. So that's just an example of how I would do it. But again, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I actually use 4 different planners for different purposes. And so this specific project is for my focus work. And so this would be technically in my Christy planner, but that's how I hope doesn't get anybody confused. But essentially, that's where you want to put in whatever tasks that you're assigning yourself for on the daily basis so that you can go ahead and see what you have due every single day. So that's it, guys. That's my process. I know I was very chatty. I'm just not used to kind of talking and doing at the same time. But that is how I get everything in a project setup, get it all organized from just a brain dump notebook that is, you know, I know it could get messy and overwhelming and all over the place, to something just more structured, and then really have that full on view of what that project's going to look like. And then if you need to see it even further in detail, now you have your overview, and then you have an area where you're really breaking it down by your daily goals and tasks, and then being able to see what your full week looks like in that workload. So if there isn't like a very specific type of project you're working on, or maybe it's like a reset of your workout routine or just your routine altogether, and you want to see examples of that, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to go ahead and do that. I'm working on a few different videos for you guys to see the full transition and focus into my March layouts for the next couple of projects that I am working on, and those are going to be in the different planners that I use. So lots of changes coming to my planning layouts in a way, but not the planners that I'm using, because you guys know I'm very dedicated to my planners. I finish out my planners completely, and I right now still have no complaints on my full Laurel Denise layouts. I'll have information on the Undated launch that is coming soon from the Laurel Denise team. I'm very excited about that launch. I'm so excited to share what's to come. When I have all of the info, I will definitely make sure that you guys are in the loop on that. But for now, that is all I have for you guys. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe if you can. And as always, leave comments or questions that you have on here, and I will chat with you guys in those comments. So see you guys in the next one.